The details panel is the panel that shows us the details or the properties or the settings or the options of objects we've selected inside of our level. If I click on an item in our content browser, nothing is going to show in our details panel, which is here in our bottom right. We need to select something inside of our level, like the static mesh or our player, even selecting something in our world outliner. And now we're going to get our details panel. Our details panel is going to show us a few different options. It's going to primarily consist of our top part here, which shows us our components that make up this object, and then our details section at the bottom, which is our properties that we can adjust on this object. Now let's go ahead and look at it in a little more detail. At the top, we can change the name of this item easily just by adjusting it here. And then we have a list of our components that make up this object. In this case, we have an instance of a static mesh actor. It's named linear stair stack mesh, and it's comprised of a static mesh component, which we can see here. We can add additional components if we want to add something else, maybe more meshes, maybe more lights. Basically set it up how you want it. Let's add a point light to our stairs, and we will move it into a position a little bit better. We'll move it maybe to here so it gives a little bit of a glow. And we like this. We like the way this is looking. We actually have to do two. We'll delete one and we'll move this one. There we go. And we like this. And we want to reuse this. We're going to reuse it maybe multiple times in multiple places. We could create this static mesh again. We could add the light, or we could easily convert this all into a blueprint because we're going to reuse it. We can use the blueprint button. That's blue. We'll click on it. We'll find where we want to put it. We'll name it whatever we want, and we'll create it. And now we have a blueprint that is made up of what we had in the item we converted. So our static mesh and its point light. And you'll notice in here, we now have a point light, which is blue, and it's part of this item. We could click on it and move it, and the light's going to go with it. We can even drag and drop in more, and they're all going to be set up the same way. Once we have a blueprint, or if we chose a blueprint, for example, here's our player, this is no longer creating a blueprint, but editing or resetting things back to defaults. So for example, I can open the blueprint editor, and it's going to show the blueprint editor for this player. We have the ability to change the properties down here. So in this case, we have our player, and it's got a different location than the default. Now, how do I know that? Well, the location icon over here, this little reset to default icon, is showing up. It's a little yellow backwards arrow. If we click on it, it'll reset it to the defaults. In this case, 0, 0, 0. I'm going to undo that, put it back to here. Anything that's been changed, you'll go ahead and see that with that icon. Or, for example, you could go here and show only modified properties. And this will show the properties that are modified from their defaults. If you want to really easily reset everything, you can go up here and you can reset the changes to the default, and that's going to reset everything back to the default. Going through our details panel, we have options. These options are all unique to the item that we have chosen. This, for example, static mesh here will have different options than this static mesh. Both of these objects may be actors. However, they're going to have different things like a different static mesh assigned to it, different locations, maybe even different materials. And those are all shown here. And this is where you'd adjust them in the details panel. But let's say you're looking for something that you know is there, but you can't find it. We can use our search bar. We can type gravity, for example, and we'll find any results that have gravity in it. There are additional options that are hidden by default. These are our advanced options. If we click Show Advanced, it's going to show us additional options that are considered to be more advanced and therefore hidden by default. Let's say you want to see them all by default. We can click our little eyeball and we can show all advanced details. And it's going to go ahead and show them all by default. One of the last options inside of here is Show Hidden Properties when playing. It's more for debugging purposes. When you're playing, you have properties that are hidden, maybe things like events and the items they're linked to. If you have this checked and you are playing, so for example, let's go ahead and go to our player and hit play. Let's eject and find our player again. If we have the Show Hidden Properties when playing and we scroll down, we'll find things that are unique to only when we're playing, and they're all mixed into here. For example, you might show things like the different settings for the capsule component, different events that are set up when our player is running, and things like that. So if you're looking for something, maybe you want to see it while you're playing, you might want to make sure you have that option checked. Now, one of our last things is, what if we're working on multiple items and we want to be able to maybe copy properties from one to the other? We have a few different ways of doing this. So you have the property matrix. Let's say we select 3 different static meshes. We have our little curve here. At the top right here, we have our selection in property matrix open option. We click on this and our property matrix opens up. This will give us the items we've selected, and it will give us the common properties between them. In this case, they all share things like these actor settings. Let's make this a little easier to read. There we go. Things like a static mesh actor component assigned to it. In this case, you can see it's multiple values because we have 3 different ones assigned. If they tick or not, options like that. Things that are common between all of them can be all changed at once inside of our property matrix. But let's say we want to change not necessarily multiple things, but maybe compare 2 different items. When we click on different items, we're going to change what we see in our details panel. However, we can go to Window, Details, and open up to 4 details panels. Let's go ahead and open up Details Panel 2. And I'm going to dock this up here on my top left. Now I have a Details Panel 2 and a Details Panel 1, and I can compare things. We'll organize this a little better. Let's say we wanted to match materials. We have this item right here. We're going to go over here. I'm going to make this a pine material, and it's going to go ahead and compile it. And it looks, I like that. Now later on, I'm like, okay, well, I want to match some settings. I want to match some elements that may be different. Instead of clicking on one item, and you now have all these details, clicking on the other, clicking back, and maybe trying to figure out which details are different and which ones are the same, you can lock detail panels. There's a little lock icon on the top right, and it'll lock the current selection. So let's go ahead and choose this item here. We're going to lock this panel, and then we'll choose this item here. You can see this panel in the top left now has our left arm selected. This panel in the bottom right, because it's not unlocked, is going to change to whatever I have. And now I could easily compare. Oh, it's the wood. Okay, I want to make this one wood. Let's see, it's pine. Oh, it's not oak. Okay, there we go. That made it easy. It's pine. We'll go ahead and go here. And it allows you to easily have multiple details panels open to different items by using the lock option. And if you unlock it, it unlocks and you can close it when you're done. The details panel is the panel that allows us to see the properties or the options on our objects and allows us to change them or view them at runtime and design time. Up next is going to be our modes panel. It changes the way we work with our project and allows us to add things like lights and other basic objects.